The morning sunlight poured through the kitchen windows, filling every corner of the house with warmth, but nothing could soften the silence that had settled there. 3 months had passed since Rowan Mercer buried his wife, Ilara, yet every sunrise felt colder than the last. He had convinced himself he had already discovered every memory she had left behind. He was wrong. Hidden inside an old cedar chest in the attic was a weathered diary wrapped carefully in a faded blue ribbon. On the final page, written with trembling handwriting that seemed to carry the weight of her fading strength, was a single sentence that shattered everything he believed he knew. "If you truly loved me, please don't let my final wish die with me." Rowan's hands shook so violently that the diary slipped onto the dusty wooden floor. He had spent months believing he had fulfilled every promise he ever made to his wife. Yet now he realized there was one promise he had never even known existed. What was her final wish? Why had she hidden it? And why had she waited until after she was gone to reveal it? Before we begin this emotional journey, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who believes in kindness and second chances, and subscribe to our Lifeline Vibes, so more heartfelt stories like this can reach people who need them most. The diary smelled faintly of lavender, the same scent Ilara had loved since childhood. Rowan sat by the attic window while golden daylight stretched across the old wooden floor. Outside, children laughed as they rode bicycles down the quiet neighborhood street, reminding him that life never stopped moving even when someone's world stood completely still. Every page of the diary carried pieces of Ilara that he had somehow missed during their 15 years together. She had written about ordinary mornings, rainy afternoons, failed recipes they laughed over, long drives with no destination, and countless tiny moments that had quietly become the happiest parts of her life. Rowan realized that while he had spent years chasing promotions and bigger opportunities, Ilara had treasured the smallest memories far more than expensive vacations or beautiful gifts. She had never complained. She had simply collected joy wherever she could find it. As he continued reading, Rowan found pages describing her illness from the very beginning. She had noticed the symptoms months before telling anyone. She wrote about sitting alone on a park bench after her first doctor's appointment, watching strangers hug their children while she silently wondered how much time she had left. Instead of writing about fear, she filled those pages with gratitude. She thanked life for every sunrise she had witnessed, every flower blooming in spring, every cup of coffee shared with her husband, and every laugh that echoed through their home. Rowan covered his face with both hands. He had never understood how much courage she carried behind her gentle smile. Further into the diary, the tone began to change. Ilara confessed something she had hidden from Rowan because she knew he would try to stop her. During her hospital visits, she had become close friends with several patients who had no family to visit them. Some received flowers only from nurses. Others stared through windows for hours because no one ever came. Ilara had quietly begun spending her remaining strength comforting complete strangers. She brought books, knitted blankets, homemade cookies, handwritten notes, and tiny potted plants to patients who believed the world had forgotten them. She wrote that every smile she received felt like another heartbeat added to her own life. Then Rowan reached the final section. There, between carefully pressed wildflowers, was her last wish. She wanted Rowan to sell their vacation cabin beside the lake, a place they had spent years saving to buy, and use every penny to create a daytime comfort center beside the city hospital. It would be a peaceful place where lonely patients and exhausted families could rest, drink coffee, read books, receive emotional support, and remember that compassion still existed. She had even chosen its name, the Morning Haven. At first, Rowan stared at the words in disbelief. The cabin represented every dream they had built together. It held anniversaries, birthdays, quiet fishing mornings, and evenings watching orange sunsets reflect across calm water. Selling it felt like erasing the last physical piece of their shared life. His heart resisted the idea with every beat. Yet beneath the request, Ilara had written another sentence. Memories don't live inside buildings. They live inside the kindness we leave behind. That sentence echoed through Rowan's mind for days. Friends encouraged him to keep the cabin. Some said Ilara would understand if he couldn't let it go. Others insisted grief made people make emotional decisions they later regretted. Rowan himself wrestled with doubt every night. He visited the cabin one last time on a bright spring morning. Sunlight shimmered across the lake exactly as it had on the day. Ilara taught neighborhood children how to skip stones across the water. Every room carried echoes of laughter. He nearly turned around several times, convinced he simply couldn't do it. Then he found an old photograph tucked inside a kitchen cookbook. It showed Ilara handing sandwiches to an elderly homeless woman during one of their weekend trips. Rowan suddenly remembered something she had once said while smiling at the stranger. She believed that generosity multiplied memories instead of replacing them. Standing there in the peaceful daylight, Rowan finally understood. Within 2 months, the cabin belonged to another family. The money became the foundation of the Morning Haven. Building the center proved far more difficult than Rowan imagined. Permits took months. Construction costs climbed unexpectedly. Volunteers came and went. Some donors withdrew their support without explanation. There were evenings when Rowan returned home physically exhausted, questioning whether he was honoring Ilara's dream or simply chasing an impossible promise. Whenever discouragement threatened to overwhelm him, he opened the diary again. Her words always seemed to arrive exactly when he needed them most. As the building slowly took shape, something remarkable happened. People began sharing their own stories. A retired carpenter offered to build handcrafted bookshelves without charging a single dollar. A florist promised fresh flowers every Monday morning. Local artists painted peaceful landscapes for the walls. College students organized fundraising concerts during sunny weekends. Cafes donated pastries. Teachers collected children's books. Therapists volunteered counseling hours. Nurses contributed blankets and handmade comfort kits. What began as one woman's hidden wish quietly transformed into an entire community discovering its own capacity for kindness. Rowan noticed something changing inside himself too. For months after Ilara's passing, grief had made every day feel empty and colorless. Now each morning carried purpose. Instead of waking to unbearable silence, he woke with a growing list of people depending on him. He realized healing did not mean forgetting someone. Healing meant allowing their love to continue shaping the lives of others. Finally, on a beautiful autumn morning filled with clear blue skies and crisp golden sunlight, the Morning Haven opened its doors. The building wasn't luxurious. It didn't need to be. Large windows welcomed natural light into every room. Comfortable chairs faced a peaceful garden blooming with colorful flowers. Shelves overflowed with donated novels, puzzles, and journals. Soft music drifted quietly through the halls. Volunteers greeted visitors with warm smiles rather than formal procedures. Fresh coffee filled the air with comforting aromas, while handwritten encouragement cards rested beside every table. The first guest was an elderly man whose wife had undergone emergency surgery. He admitted he hadn't slept in nearly 3 days, because hospital waiting rooms never truly felt restful. After spending just one afternoon inside the Morning Haven, he left with tears in his eyes, thanking volunteers for reminding him that strangers could still care about one another. Soon there were dozens more. A frightened teenage cancer patient found comfort reading novels beneath the sunny windows. A single mother caring for her injured son cried openly when volunteers surprised her with a warm homemade meal. Brothers who had traveled across the country to visit their father found peace sitting quietly in the garden. Families who had once felt invisible suddenly discovered a place where someone remembered their names and genuinely asked how they were holding up. Every story reminded Rowan of Ilara. One afternoon, a young girl approached him carrying a notebook. Her mother was receiving treatment nearby. She explained that she had started writing her own diary after visiting the center because she never wanted to forget the people who had shown kindness to her family. Rowan accepted the notebook gently before realizing tears had quietly filled his eyes. Without knowing it, Ilara's diary had inspired another generation to record hope instead of fear. Years passed. The Morning Haven expanded beyond anything Rowan had imagined. Other hospitals contacted him asking how they could create similar centers in their own communities. Volunteers traveled from neighboring towns to learn the model. Donations increased steadily, but Rowan never allowed the place to become commercialized. He insisted that every visitor should feel like they were entering someone's home rather than another institution. Above the entrance hung a simple wooden plaque bearing Ilara's favorite words: "Kindness is the only inheritance that grows after we are gone." On the anniversary of Ilara's passing, Rowan returned to the attic carrying fresh flowers. The cedar chest remained exactly where he had found it years earlier. He placed the diary back inside, this time accompanied by hundreds of handwritten thank you letters collected from families whose lives had been touched by the Morning Haven. The diary that once held only one woman's secret now rested beside proof that her dream had transformed thousands of lives. As Rowan closed the lid, he looked through the attic window toward the bright afternoon sky. The sunlight spilled across the rooftops just as it had on the morning he first discovered the diary. For the first time in many years, he smiled without forcing it. He finally understood that grief and gratitude could exist together. Love never truly disappeared. It simply changed the way it reached the world. Before we reach the ending, please write in the comments, kindness never dies. Your words may encourage someone reading the comments who is quietly carrying a heavy heart today. The greatest surprise came many years later when Rowan received a letter from a woman named Morel. As a frightened child, she had spent countless afternoons inside the Morning Haven while her father battled illness. She explained that those volunteers had inspired her to become a nurse. Every patient she cared for carried a little piece of Alara's unseen kindness, even though they had never met. Rowan folded the letter carefully and realized that one hidden wish inside a forgotten diary had become a ripple, spreading across generations. It had comforted strangers, healed broken hearts, inspired careers, reunited families with hope, and reminded countless people that compassion is never wasted. Some people leave behind wealth. Others leave behind achievements that fade with time. Alara left behind something infinitely greater. She left behind a reason for strangers to believe in each other again. Her final wish was never really about a building, a garden, or a quiet room filled with books. It was about proving that the deepest expression of love is not what we keep for ourselves, but what we give away so others can continue living with hope. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a heartfelt comment, share it with someone you love, and subscribe to Thar's Lifeline Vibes. Your support helps meaningful stories reach people who may need hope today. And remember, the greatest legacy any of us can leave behind is not written on stone. It is written in the hearts we choose to heal while we still have the chance.